And I want to go down that a little bit further, Lyle. This is something I'm showing here on my screen. You said here, or what defense priorities published here was, would the U.S. really fight for Taiwan? Okay, we saw that's what President Biden has said in the past. But you asked a couple of questions on here, or the authors of this piece did. I just want to go over a couple of them. It said, how could U.S. forces prevail when China's large armed forces are so proximate and prepare for this fight, while our forces are on the end of a logistics train that stretches 10,000 miles across the Pacific? I think that's a really important point to point out. And how do you answer that question?
Yeah, and that's why I think that the president either willfully or not is engaged in an elaborate kind of bluff, as are many in Washington, because anybody who really takes a look at the military details here sees quite immediately. After all, just pull out a map and you see the tremendous kind of asymmetry here, that geography grants a huge advantage to the Chinese armed forces in this scenario. I mean, in a way, it's a kind of dream scenario for them. And that's what's so scary about this. I mean, we could blunder into a kind of Tsushima Strait, if people know their history, type disaster where our fleet losses are, truly devastating, of the type that is the end of a superpower. So, we just don't want to go there, and not only are the Chinese proximate, but they're prepared and focused, meaning they have focused singularly on this scenario for at least 3 decades, but really for more, and prepared in each and every way for each contingency. Now, I want to say that China does not want to fight a war with the U.S. That's absolutely clear, and they, I think, will do their utmost to persuade those few smart people in D.C. to realize that this is not worth doing. And that's one reason they're building up their nuclear forces so robustly, because Americans might be wise enough to stand aside. I suspect they will be wise enough. However, they're not counting on that, and they are indeed prepared to go there. And I'm more and more convinced that they have done the homework. They're dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And I do believe, although surely if it came to war, we would inflict huge losses on the Chinese, I'm quite convinced they would prevail, actually. And a lot of this has to do with logistics, which I know, Danny, you know a lot about. But keeping those ships, for example, supplied with gas and munitions, and these are not small munitions. We're not moving 155 rounds around. We're moving torpedoes, which are very dear, very costly, very hard to move around, and very hard to put in a warship, including a submarine. So these are tremendously vulnerable logistics nodes. The Chinese are well aware of that, and this is a fight we should not enter into this fight. We are so severely disadvantaged that if it comes to a war with China, and I dearly hope it does not, but this is the wrong place for such a war. And
Mr. Ambassador, one of the other things you've seen from over the last year or so, especially from a whole list of U.S. admirals in congressional testimonies, that they continue to talk about this big risk of China, and to try to alleviate some of these things, they want multiple $1 billion of additional defense spending in order to create more and more bases and other kinds of things around the Taiwan Strait area. Is this a good path for the United States? Is this going to make us more safe, and will it deter China?
No to all of those questions. It's not a good course. It's natural for bureaucratic entities like military services to want more money, and threat exaggeration is the basic way to achieve that. But they have a responsibility to do what the National Command Authority, the president, directs them to do. The president, whether he has constitutional authority or not, has told them to prepare to enter a war with China over Taiwan, so they have to plan for that. That's not their fault. I think, however, I want to make a few points. First of all, one thing the Ukraine war has shown us, by the way, it's a proxy war with Russia. We don't have our own troops directly involved in the fighting. They're behind the Ukrainians, but they're not on the front line. This would not be a proxy war. This is a direct war. It's far easier to finesse the nuclear matter if it's a proxy war than it is if you're directly attacking the Chinese homeland, which we would which we would do. Chinese military doctrine, as Lyle knows, is if you strike me, I will strike you. So we attack their homeland, they will attack ours by whatever means they consider appropriate. It could be just a cyber attack, but we're risking nuclear war with a nuclear power over this issue. And I think the other point is that another thing the Ukraine war has shown us is that we don't have the surge capacity we did in World War II. We are not the arsenal of democracy in the 21st century. Whether we have a democracy or not is increasingly debatable.
Right.
But leave that aside. We are spending, if you put, well, the defense budget is only about 60% of what we spend on military matters. And so we're spending well over $1 trillion on the military, maybe $1.5 trillion. The Chinese are spending far less. The burden on their economy is far less, and they do have surge capacity. They have the ability to win a war of attrition, which is what this could easily turn into.
So crucial to understand. Yeah.
Wow.
Could I just interject one, data point, which I think people should be aware of? CSIS, the one of the leading think tanks in DC, and not known for their, they generally have supported this policy of preparing for war with China, but they came out with a study a couple of months ago. They said that actually China has something like 230 times the shipbuilding capacity of the United States, not 23 times, which would be already a huge disadvantage, 230 times. And that directly checks out with my experience, spending a lot of time. I was just in Shanghai, but I have walked Chinese shipyards, and it is truly astounding what they're doing. But here, Ambassador Freeman is completely right that if it comes to a war that lasts more than a month, which it may very well shake out that way, it could go on for years. And China is prepared to lose its navy and build another 2 or 3 navies. We cannot do that. If we lose...
and listen, I just want to highlight that point that is how crucial it is to understand that. I mean, you're seeing that the Russia-Ukraine war has basically divulged into an attrition model warfare where it almost doesn't even matter hardly what your tactics are. It matters who's got the biggest industrial capacity, who's got the ability to sustain industrial capacity, and especially arms, and the side that doesn't. And right now, Russia is slowly grinding down. But I think
one more data point
out, it's much bigger on the China-U.S. imbalance.
Yes. And in fact, people don't realize if China put its industrial engine really to work for Russia, then the war would be over very quickly. And China has exercised restraint and not done that, which is very important for us to realize that. But one more data point on shipbuilding, I would say it's often said, I think, and quite right, that China has more shipbuilding capacity in Shanghai, just in Shanghai, than in the entirety of the United States.
Let me put this in a broader perspective, because what causes you to lose on the battlefield or at the negotiating table is hubris, overestimation of your own capabilities and capacities. We say, well, we have a bigger economy than China. Well, we do, if you're counting insurance brokers, tax lawyers, and so forth and so on. Chinese manufacturing sector is 3 times our size. It is now 36% of global manufacturing. We have fallen to about 12%. If you get into a war, I'm sorry, insurance brokers are not terribly relevant. And so I think, we have a health sector that eats up about 18, 19% of GDP and still doesn't cover all Americans. And is widely regarded by virtually everybody as a giant ripoff. This is, okay. So we have a bigger GDP, so measured in dollars. Actually, measured in purchasing power, they're 1/3 larger than us.
Oh, wow.
So we need to knock it off. We need to recognize that, we are a formidable country with huge advantages if we have the policies that leverage those those characteristics, but we're not doing it.